In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Alrighty, Taylor, we are recording. My energy is a little bit lower than usual. It's been a long travel couple of days. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I just got back from spring break, and it was fun. It was cold, and we went to Ventura and like the Channel Islands, like up in California. I took a boat to a very beautiful island and went on a hike, and the boat ride was an hour long, and I threw up the entire time. I almost died.
That's you told me that, and I was like, I don't know why you do this to yourself.
It was the worst. Like on the way
Did
back
you
was better,
know?
but man. Well, I took a Dramamine. Like I know that like I'm not good on boats, but I didn't know it was going to be that bad.
Yeah, I hear you. Remember that one time I tried to book the ferry from LA to Catalina Island?
That was the funniest day of my life. Guys, Forrest was on the phone with this customer service person, and he was like, I want two tickets. Why are they $30 each, but $100 for two? And it was like a hour and a half long conversation, and it was so funny. And I don't know what the answer was, but you were not happy.
Was not happy, but I did get to Catalina Island, and I also got seasick. I don't know
Ugh.
what it is. Maybe it's like the choppiness of like that
Yeah.
part of the ocean. I mean, yeah, because I used to go out on the water in the Atlantic Ocean when I lived in Miami, and I didn't have that problem. I think it's the Pacific, maybe.
I think so too. It feels different. Yeah.
So, very cool. Well, welcome back, and also we got to say
Thanks.
congratulations to our really good friends Jay and Beth for welcoming their new baby
Woohoo!
boy.
Yay! And we have an awesome picture of Jeff in the hospital. Jay? Did I say
You
Jeff?
said Jeff.
Is that Jay and Beth's couple name?
Yeah, I
Jeff?
like it, Jeff. Yeah,
I saw a picture of Jay in the hospital wearing his Doomed to Fail t-shirt, which is a hilarious thing for a new dad to wear.
it was very
So thank
cool.
you for that.
Yep, yep. Cool. So, do you want to go ahead and introduce us?
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Hello. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We bring you history's most notorious disasters and failures. I am Taylor, joined by Fars.
And yes, I'm here, and today we're going to hear a story by you, Taylor.
Yes, I am ready. So, Fars, do you remember that joke about the libertarian town that was taken over by bears?
I did not. Is that a joke or a real thing?
It's a real thing, but you just like hear that and you laugh like you
That,
just did.
yeah, that's insane if that's true.
So I was like, there has to be more to the story than that. And there is, but also there isn't. It's sort of just like there was a libertarian town taken over by bears because no one would take out the trash.
I
So I'm
mean,
going to
it
tell you about it.
kind of makes sense. If you're libertarian, you don't believe in any government. So, like,
hmm
why not let the bears rule everything?
Exactly. And that's what happened. So today I'm going to tell you about Grafton, New Hampshire, and the Freetown Project.
This does, yeah, New Hampshire sounds right for this.
Exactly. I'll tell you more about New Hampshire as well. So I read a book called A Libertarian Walks into a Bear by Matthew Hongelotz Hetling, and I'll link to it as well. And I have a couple other websites that I went to. But I also had said when I did the story about Munster and the Anabaptists like a while ago that I wanted to do a follow-up, and I feel like this is a follow-up. And then it is kind of because it's like people who want to take over a town where people already live, and then like change it into what they want, whether it's the Anabaptists being like, you need to be our particular form of Christianity, or it's libertarians being like, you need to be our particular form of government. In both cases, they like, kind of invaded a town and tried to take over, and it did not end well.
Sweet.
Um, Also, in the Libertarian Walks into a Bear, one of the characters was reading a book about the Anabaptists in Munster, so I feel like I wasn't totally
Interesting.
wrong there. It's mentioned in there. Like they were thinking about this, like, taking over a town and like making it into like a utopia, which by the way never works. So
Never
that's what they have
works.
to think about. So I'm going to talk about New Hampshire, libertarians, and then Grafton, New Hampshire, and specifically bears and the Freetown Project
I
that
love
happened
that
in
we're going to have an
Grafton.
episode that covers bears. This is
Yeah,
great.
bears are the best.
Bears are the
Um,
best.
so New Hampshire, the state. It is in New England, as you know. I probably could
That's
put
why
it
it's
on a
called
map.
New Hampshire, because there's a
No,
Hampshire.
no, I know, but I
Okay.
feel like I could probably point it out, but like maybe not. It's next to Vermont. It's this way. So the area that is New England, that is New Hampshire, was Originally, the Abenaki people lived there for thousands of years. They lived in long houses, they farmed, and they hunted and gathered. They spoke a dialect of the Algonquin language, which I think we talked about a little bit when we talked about the Niagara Falls, which makes sense because that's like the same area, like up in New England. And currently, the Abenaki Nation headquarters is in Quebec, so it's like part of Canada where you just were. Not that part of Canada, but like it's in Canada, and it's like that area of North America. The state of New Hampshire currently does not recognize the Abenaki people, and there was a bill in 2021 to allow communities to rename their towns to the traditional Abenaki names, and it failed. So New Hampshire does not recognize them, but there is a New Hampshire Commission on Native American Affairs. It started in 2010, but they're not like it's not like a huge deal in that area now. For the Abenaki people, bears were obviously considered very powerful because they're scary. They were, if you were going to kill a bear for its meat and its fur, you would, go through a ceremony during and before and after the hunt to honor the spirit of the bear, which totally makes sense. It's like sounds like a lot of like things that we imagine Native Americans doing, right?
Wait, I think that didn't you I think you might have even covered this group because it looks like the French and Indian War was when they were displaced. Didn't you cover
Yeah,
that?
I think I did when I did Niagara Falls.
Yeah, I thought so
Yeah.
too. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So it's those people that, they were involved in Niagara Falls as well. I think in the Niagara Falls episode, we learned that there were like those kind of stylized myths that like the French made of like, Native Americans used to like sacrifice people over the Niagara Falls, blah blah blah. And that was not true, but they would like make stuff up like that
Right.
kind of thing. So so those are the people that lived there before. And then people came from Europe, obviously. So New Hampshire was established as an English colony in 1623. So it was one of the first settlements in the United States. It received a royal charter and was separate from Massachusetts. So it's really close to Massachusetts. Sometimes they were like merged together, but they were separate. And New Hampshire has always been a like very independent leaning place. They were actually the first colony to establish an independent government and create its own constitution in January 1776, 6 months before the Declaration of Independence. So they're ready to do it like sooner than everybody else. And do you remember the state motto of New Hampshire? It's on their license plates.
The free pe is this something about being free?
Yeah, it's live free or die.
Yeah, there you go.
So in New Hampshire, they don't want to pay taxes. They never did. That was also part of it. The reason that they left, they tried to leave Britain earlier is they were just even more sick of paying taxes than the rest of us. And sometimes they just didn't pay their taxes. Even after the Revolutionary War and they became part of the United States, there were times when the government would have to like go into New Hampshire to try to get state taxes and they would just not pay them. Like, what if we just don't? And they just wouldn't. In New Hampshire right now, it has no sales tax, a flat 3% income tax. The corporate tax rate is 7.5%, and the property tax rate is 1.61%. So extraordinarily low for America.
I wonder why everybody incorporates in Delaware. It's got to be lower than that for corporate taxes then, right?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, I don't know. Good question. So, New Hampshire is also the home of the Free State Project, which is basically a call for people who want limited government to move there. So, if you feel like you want limited government, you don't want to pay a lot of taxes, you don't want government involved in your life, New Hampshire is a good place for you. And the Free State Project still exists. I'll tell you a little bit more about them later. So, that's New Hampshire. Have you ever been there?
No, no, there's never been a reason to go.
Remember in Wayne's World when they go, "Hi, I'm in Delaware." Remember that?
I don't.
In Wayne's World, they have like a thing, and they're like, it's like a green screen. It's like the Eiffel Tower, and they're like, "Oh, I'm in France. We have a cigarette." Da da da. And then it's like, "Oh, I'm in New York. Get out of here. I'm walking here." And then it says it's Delaware, and they go, "Hi, I'm in Delaware." That's how I feel about New Hampshire. I don't think about it often, but there you go. Now, Let's talk about libertarians. So libertarian is a very small third party in the United States. The things that they want are, personal liberty and individual rights. You can make your own decisions as long as you don't hurt other people. They believe in very, very limited government. The government should only exist to, basically like to be able to sue people, to enforce contracts, and do like national defense, but nothing more than that. They don't want they don't want to intervene in like foreign things. They just want to kind of like be left alone to do what they want to do. They also support like privacy rights and protection of civil liberties. So they oppose surveillance programs. They want to be left alone, and no one should really like know what they're doing. Um, they also want more power given to local governments, but like extreme power in local governments in communities rather than the federal government, and then very, very low taxes. So, libertarians basically, they're like, I want to be able to do whatever I want as long as I don't hurt anybody. Why is it anybody's business? You know?
I kind of get that sentiment.
I do too, sure. But then it also, I think some of the problems that you run into is they want to do things like have a duel if they're mad at someone. And they want to sleep with their cousins. Not all of them, but some of them are like, why can't I sleep with my cousin? And they also think that children can consent to sexual acts in some cases, which is not good. So a couple of things that like aren't great for sure. And then there's also things that the government does that I personally enjoy, like having roads and libraries and firefighters and having people pick up the garbage, and things like that. And if the government isn't there to pay for it, people aren't going to want to pay for it,
Right.
which is what we're going to learn. Like
Right.
no one's going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So Grafton, New Hampshire is a tiny town, about 1,500 people, like really tiny. There's things like a firehouse and a church, and a normal amount of bears for the Northeast. So like there are definitely bears there, and it has the same amount of bears as any other town in New Hampshire. If you live in the Northeast, you're probably used to this, and also other parts of America. You know,
California.
there's bears here. So I was actually in the car with my kids yesterday, and we were passing a store for guns and ammo, and Florence was like, "Why is there a gun store?" And I was like, "Well, people have the right to have guns." And I was talking about the Second Amendment, and then I was like, "Well, in the beginning of America, you really needed a gun because there were bears, and you were like moving west, and you were going to run into native people, and like all the things that, not great, but it made sense to have a gun. And you don't need them as much anymore." And then Florence like sighed, and she was like, "Yeah, and then we killed all the California grizzly bears." And I was like, "Damn, you're right." So I know there are bears in California, but the California grizzly bear specifically has been extinct since 1924.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So not we, I don't live there anymore. But y'all just have black bears now?
I guess. I don't know. And other kinds of bears, but the California grizzly bear is gone.
I mean, Taylor, like realistically, you probably want them gone. A grizzly
I
bear,
know.
I heard if you shoot a grizzly bear that's charging at you in the head, it'll still keep coming at you.
No, no, no. I don't want a bear anywhere near me. Did you see that bear movie by Werner Herzog? Have you seen that one? Where the
Oh
guy
my,
gets eaten by a bear?
yeah. Treadwell, something Treadwell. Yeah, it was horrific. Yeah, those were grizzly bears. That's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, "I'm gonna be friends with them." And it's like, no, you're not. They're bears.
Yeah, that's when somebody should have put him on meds. Like that guy was obviously not
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No good. But there have been bears in this area forever in the Northeast, all over the United States and North America. And as soon as Europeans came, they started hunting the bear like more, than the Native Americans had been hunting them in the past for fur and food and all those things. And in the 19th century, the black bear, so I'm talking about black bears specifically in this case, so they're kind of smaller than grizzly bears, but like a black bear. So in the 19th century, black bears were near extinction in this area, and they put up some regulations. So the government was like, you can only hunt during certain times and et cetera. And they were able to recover the population. So in New Hampshire right now, there's estimated to be anywhere from 6 to 8,000 bears, which is a lot of bears for such a small area.
Yeah, it's small,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And there are some interactions with people that bears have that aren't great. Like they want food and sometimes they want pets, like if you have a chicken or a little dog in your backyard, you might want to watch them because there could be a bear in the area. And did you also another thing, have you heard of that quote from a Yosemite park ranger about the bear-proof garbage bins? Have you ever heard this?
No.
So somebody asked him like, why is it so hard to figure out a garbage can that bears can't get into? And he said, quote, there is considerable overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists,
I believe that.
which really makes sense.
I've actually
So,
also been one of those tourists who've been like
oh,
frantically trying to open a thing and not being able to figure it out for like a few minutes. So
yeah, I think I have. I think I have as well. So I don't blame you or anyone for that. So Grafton, New Hampshire exists in New Hampshire with all that context. There are bears there. There've been bears for a while and all of that. So now we're talking about specifically Grafton, and there is a thing called the Free Town Project that turns into the Free State Project. And it started in 2003, and it was libertarians wanting to concentrate their political power, which is a good idea because there aren't a lot of libertarians in the federal government. Right now, there's only been one libertarian congressman named Justin Amash from Michigan, and he was
yeah,
elected as a Republican and then became a libertarian. So,
yeah, he was a
and
big
he's a,
deal.
and
Yeah,
he's a Republican again now. So he just
yeah,
he wasn't elected as a libertarian. He became one and then went back to being a Republican. So mostly they're just Republicans,
yep.
but sometimes they say that they are
It's
libertarians.
like you just caucus with whatever gives you the most likelihood of passing any sort of legislation. Like
Absolutely.
Bernie's not a Democrat, but he
Right.
caucuses with them. It's the same
But
concept.
their party is just like, unless you start a movement where they grow, so not nothing's in all of this of state elected officials, about 1.3% are third party at all. So very small percent are libertarians. There's like four in like any state government. So some like prominent libertarians wanted to find a place and they started talking to each other. And there's some people who had like worked in the government before and they were like, well, now we really want to have this place where we can really be free. Let's go to New Hampshire. So they drive around New Hampshire and they find the town of Grafton. And there's a guy that lives there named John Babaritz. And he lived there and he loved this idea. He had been living in that place in Grafton for a long time. He has like well water and he made his own solar panels, and he's just like as off the grid as he can be. And he had actually ran for governor of New Hampshire a few times, and he liked the idea of a free town, so he invited the libertarians to come to Grafton. He didn't have any like official inviting power. He just was like, "Yeah, this makes sense. Why don't you guys come here?"
Yeah,
So a bunch of people start moving to Grafton, and it might surprise you that they're mostly men. So it's also a problem because there weren't many women in Grafton. But they wanted like, the same things that the Libertarian Party wants. Minimal government, uh, personal liberty. They want to experiment with their social experiment to be like, can we really build a town that's like just libertarians? Can we make it great? Because we're going to, decide on not having a lot of rules. So they did things like join the town council, so they could like change things and be able to do things in Grafton. And by the way, people still live there. Like there's regular people that are not libertarians that live there, and they're kind of getting invaded by these libertarians. And they're like, okay, just, don't mess things up. But they kind of start to do things almost immediately that start to mess things up. They decrease the town budget by a lot. So right away, things like the roads started to fall into disrepair, like buildings started to fall down because there were no more regulations on what buildings you could live in. There was also no fire department because they were like they cut the budget for the fire department and they were like, we'll just have volunteers do it. But you also need things to be a volunteer firefighter. You know, like if your
yeah,
house is on fire, I could come over, but I have like a bucket and a hose. Like I
right.
can't, I don't have a fire truck, you know? So there's several times when people's houses burned down because it took like 45 minutes for a fire truck to come from another town that was paying for a fire department.
Right.
And after that would happen, they would have a town council meeting, and every time they would vote to still not have a fire department. The risk was worth not having to pay for a fire department. But like you're just borrowing someone else's fire department. You still need a fire department, you
Right.
know? So one person who like was really into it, his name was John Connell. He ended up buying a church, this like beautiful 200-year-old historic building, and he like made it into his own church. And he had like no qualifications as a pastor of any kind, but he would like preach and like hold meetings and do things, and his church ended up burning down in 2016, and he died inside of it, and no one could help him and no one could save him because there were no firefighters to go and help him and save him. So they lost an historic building, which was also not being maintained because there were no zoning laws and no restrictions on the building. So you could live in a 200-year-old dilapidated building that was a fire trap with no firemen to come and save you
Yeah.
because you're free to do that.
Which is great.
Which is, I guess, so a lot of the people who had lived in Grafton for a long time were obviously upset by this. Like this affected their life. The public safety was a huge issue, and there's a lot of tension. And then there were a lot of legal battles because libertarians still believe that you can have legal battles. So they're like suing each other a lot over like, we need a fire department, we need to have these services, to people being like, we're absolutely not paying these taxes no matter what, even though these services like are essential. So they also, since there was no zoning and no like building laws, they could live wherever they wanted. So they would live in big shanty towns in the middle of the woods, and they wouldn't take out the trash. They wouldn't take it anywhere because there's nowhere to take it because they weren't paying for like the local like landfills and things to be maintained. So the trash would just build up, and that would attract the bears,
I see where it's
you know?
living.
And some people would feed the bears. So Grafton had more sightings of bears and bear attacks than anywhere else in New Hampshire, despite having like proportionately the same amount of bears, because there was nobody who would like people would feed the bears because they wanted to. And no one could tell on them. No one would call the like police and be like, "Listen, my neighbor's leaving out food for bears," because they had the right to leave out food for bears. So there would just be more bears.
Never feed the bears.
This one woman in the book, they just called her Donut Lady, because she didn't want to say her name because she's embarrassed. But she would leave donuts out for the bears every day, and she had kind of like trained them in a way. So the bears would start coming to her house, and she would leave this food out for them, and they would know, and they would come every day. So she would go out and buy donuts every day, come home and go put it in the backyard. But she'd step out into her yard, and the bears would be on like the edge of the forest, and they would be like coming toward her, and she would go, "Hold on. Just wait a second, back up. And then she would go and put the donuts out, and then she'd go back up, hold on, and go back into her house. And then they'd go and eat the donuts. So they knew that when she was doing that, the donuts were coming. So when the bears went to other people's houses who didn't know this, they would say naturally, "Whoa, back up." And they would back up, but the bears wouldn't leave because they were like, "That's the sign that donuts are coming." You know?
I
So it just got like
remember
worse and worse.
I remember living in LA and I would get like so angry, it would almost like ruin my day. Anytime I saw someone feeding pigeons, it's like
Yeah,
stop feeding them.
stop it.
They're
Even
everywhere.
like in New York, where we lived in Queens, people would feed the feral cats. And I'll be like, this isn't helping them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, don't do that. Like, we could, you know, get them adopted and do that would be better for them than to like live out here, just have 1,000 cat babies.
Yeah, just adopt a bunch of
But
feral cats. That's way better.
I mean, some people like doing that. I mean, I don't, but some people do. So, for 150 years in New Hampshire, there were no bear attacks on people. And in 2012 was the first wild bear attack on a human in this part of New Hampshire. And then there were two more like after that. So, just because the bears felt so comfortable being there, they would like show up on people's porches. They'd break into their houses. And just like I said, there weren't more bears there. They had just let the bears do whatever they want. And the bears were attracted to all the food that was everywhere because the whole town was like falling apart because there were no more essential services.
Yeah, they were acting rationally.
Yeah. So eventually the local government and the people who had lived there before were like, we can't do this anymore. Like this is enough. Like we have to have these services back. And in 2016, the Freetown project officially came to an end. Many of the people left because they didn't want to live in a place that had the government, which is like, sure, but you're the ones who ruined this place. So they just kind of like left their shanty towns, and moved on. New Hampshire itself considers the Free State Project to be a success. So the Free State Project, people, you can go to their website. It is fsp.org. It says, come to New Hampshire, move here. We have limited government. You can be free. So in 2016, when the free town itself was kind of deteriorating, the whole state was like, we're successful. So more libertarians were like, well, let's all move to New Hampshire. But why would we move to Grafton? Grafton's a shithole. So they didn't move. back to Grafton or to Grafton because Grafton was full of like shanty towns. And then they also, as they fixed it up and fixed it, they went back to having obviously government services
Yeah, it's a decent
where,
website.
yeah, it's a nice website.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's better put together than a lot of campaign websites. I will say that.
I agree. I think it looks nice. Oh, so I mean, I was like, so the success in the Free State Project is that you can move anywhere in New Hampshire, but I'm like, you could always have done that. But okay, if you guys want to like live together. I was on their website and they have a calendar. Oh, literally right now is the Liberty and Cigars meetup is happening right now. There is a there's a firearms meeting tomorrow. Oh, there's a Japanese club later tonight. There is a cryptocurrency meetup on Saturday if you wanted to attend that. The cute things like there's a clothing swap that totally makes sense. There's a macrame plant hanging workshop. Awesome. These are just like things that are happening in different parts of New Hampshire that you can go to. There's a potluck in Grafton you could go to on Saturday. So there's some things in there that are cute, and there's like I don't know what else they're doing over there. But they do have a lot of a plant swap next week. So the idea of having this like community where everybody helps each other is cute. And these meetups are cute, but I do think that there's a case for a little bit of taxation for things that are like you need like garbage pickup,
Yeah,
streets.
it cuts both ways. It was like my
Yeah.
episode with Ezra Klein's abundance concept about how you can have too much of something or too little of it.
Hmm.
I also tend to think like this isn't um this probably doesn't need to be a political movement. It can be a philosophy on life. Like I generally think that like you should try to take as care of the stuff that you can take care of yourself and not be reliant on others. Like,
Hmm.
but I don't. It just grow a vegetable garden. Like, don't depend on the
Yeah.
grocery store to give you your vegetables. Like, you don't have
Yeah.
to then extend that theory into we don't need hospitals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it
Right.
just
I'm
doesn't
gonna
need to
watch
go
your
all the
house
way.
burn down because I don't want to spend an extra.
Which is also why these things tend not to gain any sort of political traction and political movement. Why someone like Justin Amash has to go back and forth between party affiliations is
Hmm.
because this isn't a united coalition. It's a faction. It's like very factional. Actually, it's literally what the Democratic Party is right now. Now that I
That's
think
what I
about
was when you said that I was thinking that. I'm like, the
it. It's just
Republicans are super united and no one else is. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's also. I mean, listen, if you bring up a bunch of people together who are all like, we are going to be told what to do, and we're going to be free spirited and free thinkers, you're not going to get them all to be like vote this way.
Right.
It's just never going to work.
No, totally. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm doing whatever I want. I'm not hurting anyone." And then you're like, "Okay, well, you just had a duel in the town square and
You
getting
shot someone,
murky
Bill. Like
on
we
other
gotta address
things."
it. Like you
Yeah,
can't keep burning your driver's license, social security card. Um,
exactly. Exactly. You can't have, 1,000 guns in your house and then also set your house on fire.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
don't do that. And someone is paying for everything because like the town next to them is gonna let it burn down. So they're gonna come over and help because that's what you're supposed to do.
Which I think now a place like Alaska tends to attract a lot of those folks who are like, just leave
Hmm.
me alone because like who is gonna care what you do in Alaska? You're in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. Like
Yeah.
so there's a place for that. It's just I don't know if it needs to be a political movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you can be like in my community, I want to have like, yeah, like you said, like a place like I'll grow potatoes, you grow tomatoes, and we'll swap them. We'll swap clothes. We have like the buy nothing groups on Facebook. Like all that stuff feels, you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to depend. You can live in a community and take care of each other. But I think, you know me, I think that there's a good case for the government.
There's I think there's a good case for 70% of government.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the essential services part, which I feel like we learned. I mean, we say that a lot more since COVID, but like what's essential and what isn't. But like, we need to have the fire department. We need to have hospitals. I didn't even say talk about hospitals. Who knows how they got any like medical care in this area as well. And you need to be able to tell people that they're being stupid. Like you can't fucking feed the bears like this.
That is,
You're
yeah.
affecting everybody else. Like it's not just like, oh, in my yard bears are allowed. And you're like, they're bears. They can go everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you having being like, oh, my yard is a bear safe zone. Well, okay, great, but you have neighbors, and like you're just teaching the bears to do these things, and that's not good. I remember my dad told me, I don't know if this is true. I'll look it up later, but that when he used to live next to a zoo in Chicago, and there was used to be able to feed marshmallows to the bears, and then one time there was a flood, and the bears got out of their enclosure because they like swam over the moat, and they not attacked, it was in the middle of the night, but they like opened up the marshmallow stand and ate all of them.
That's so
And
cute.
then they were like, well, you can't do that anymore because you just trained a bunch of bears to eat marshmallows.
That is so adorable.
Because they're smart. So you're just teaching them how to do these things. And they're like, no, but they're still bears.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I want to hug one, but like, no. I know I'm not supposed
You
to.
you talking about the extinction thing? Did you hear about this dire wolf situation?
No.
Okay, so apparently dire wolves have been extinct for like I forgot what it was. It was like thousands and thousands of years. And there's this company based out of Dallas called
Oh
Colossal
God.
Laboratories and Biosciences, and their entire goal is de-extinction of animals.
We talked
And
about that with passenger pigeon like a long, long time ago.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and apparently they successfully were able to. It's interesting. It's not an actual dire wolf derived from like dire wolf DNA. They're gray wolves who had their DNA genetically modified to match that of a dire wolf, and so I don't know if they're legally considered dire wolves, but they just had their cubs recently, and so like now the world has two of these dire cub things, and they're
It's
working on
like
like woolly mammoths and like they're working on a lot of stuff.
I've seen all the Jurassic Park so many times because we love them over here at my house. But I love the one where Dr. Wu is like, yeah, of course we had to use like frog DNA because we don't have all the DNA and they look like the way you wanted them to look like, you know?
Yeah.
He's not like, this is what dinosaurs look like. This is what you wanted them to look like. And then also the new Jurassic Park, like the brand new one, we just watched the trailer for it. And it's like, by the way, there's a super secret island with even worse dinosaurs on it. And you're like,
They're kind of milking it
I,
to this point. I mean, come on. Like,
but I kind of believe that people would do that. You
yeah,
know? Like I think if Jurassic Park was open, people would go. I would
these
go.
wolves are stupid cute. If you go to the
They are
website,
cute.
oh my
Yeah.
God. They're little puppies, 6 month old. Oh my God. His name's Romulus. The other one's Khaleesi and then Remus. Oh,
Nothing good will come of this.
I mean, they're not that dangerous, right?
I don't know, dude. As soon as there's a brontosaurus in my backyard, it'll eat my tree. I have one tree, it'll eat my tree. I don't know. But I feel like that's also the least of my worries. I welcome woolly mammoths.
Yeah, yeah.
Come back.
Let's
Who
have
cares?
dude. They're saying that like well, there's some crazy number. I mean, I haven't fact checked any of this stuff. They're saying that 30,000 species per year on average are going extinct. That's six
I know, I
per
hear that all
hour
the
and
time.
150 per day. Is that crazy? It seems almost impossible.
It does, but I feel like it's like very, very specific on what a species is.
I know
You
it's like
know?
this one pond scum that like is going extinct that
Yes.
like you've never heard of. It's
I
like
mean,
something
it's
like
not
that.
probably not good, but I feel like also it's probably their time.
Okay. All right, very libertarian of you, but yes,
I know. Like if someone in the house next to me was cloning dinosaurs, I'd be like, "Can
we
I
got to
please call
talk.
someone?
We
Can I
got to
call the
talk about
police?
this.
Like, who can regulate what kind of dinosaurs you can make in your backyard? That will actually be a problem." That's why it says, "See also George R. R. Martin." I see that one of them is named Khaleesi. They couldn't find a real name to name the girl. Anyway,
Khaleesi's is a great name.
I know, but
Oh, they're doing
Romulus and Remus are
dodos.
from Rome. Oh, they're doing. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. They didn't hurt anyone.
They don't name it. I mean, they're only extinct because their crime was trusting humans.
I mean, same with a lot of these things.
It's true. It's a good point.
Like the passenger pigeon, like any of these animals. Like when people got to like Australia not that long ago had just like gigantic fucking animals. Now it doesn't anymore.
Yeah. Well, hopefully these guys will bring them back. Anywho, that's a fun story. We did
Yeah,
never heard of never thought of Grafton. Actually, don't even really think about New Hampshire very much.
I don't either. I was thinking about that when I was doing this. I was like, I guess I never think about New Hampshire. Like I knew the live free or die part, and then I had like I said in the beginning, like kind of heard the story like libertarians took over a town and then there were too many bears because they would take up the trash. And like that's pretty much it.
It is also the state where Family Guy takes place, so that's the only time I ever thought about it.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought they were in like Massachusetts, but I guess Quahog's in New Hampshire.
Wait,
They're in
Family Guy.
Rhode Island. They're in Rhode Island.
Are they?
Yeah.
What state is Family Guy based in? I saw the
They're in
I saw the
Rhode
name.
Island.
Is it okay? All right. Well, disregard.
But like I said,
Um.
it's all very close together
Yeah.
up there.
Same.
Shout out to all of our listeners in New Hampshire, capital of Dover. Nope, no
We
idea.
love you. Sweet. Do we have anything to share with?
Concord. Um, no, but thank you everyone for listening. If you have any ideas, please let us know. doomtofailpod@gmail.com. And we are at all the socials at Doom to Fail Pod and on Patreon at Doom to Fail Pod as well. So you can support us and help us grow, which we are doing. So we appreciate it.
Very, very appreciated. Sweet. Okay, we can go ahead and cut things off. You have nothing else, Taylor?
That's it. Thank you.
Sweet.